Okay, welcome back. What I want to do is to continue with the electrotechnical systems and equipment for building structures and the environment. Okay, and again, this is Unit 305. Now remember that Unit 305 relates to the 2357, but the knowledge and the information is still applicable to the 5357. Now, although I've looked at the 5357, there are some bits that they seem to have left out, but experience has told me that they will be putting any bits that they've left out, they will be putting it back in at a later stage as an addition. Okay, so let's just make sure that we look at now. Here, this is section 6, checking for pre-existing damage. Okay, okay, just making sure that you can get it in frame without too much difficulties. Okay, okay. Now in this session, the learner will have the opportunity to explain how to check for any pre-existing damage to customer's property and to state why it is important to do this prior to commencement of the installation. How to select suitable installation, fixings and fitting methods. Okay. Make sure we get this fully in frame, okay, first, so you can see that it is what we're saying. Now, pre-existing conditions. Prior to any work commencing on site, it is important that both contractor and client are clear about the condition of the existing building. Now, the reason why you need to be aware of this is that if you haven't checked that the conditions of the buildings or home or the house that in which you're going to put in the new installation or the office, then you can be held responsible for any damage that has occurred. But if you have evidence to show that yes, you have carried out a pre-existing check for damage, yes, that damage wasn't there at the time that the check was carried out, therefore it had to have been done after, you save yourself a lot of time and can save yourself and your company a lot of money. Now, issues may arise between the client and the contractor should damage suddenly appear and one blames the other for doing it. This then needs to be discussed with the client and decisions made as who will be responsible for making good, both for the existing damage and any damage done during the installation process. Now it matters a great deal, okay? So let's just come up a little bit, make sure we can get your head in. Okay. Now here I'm just showing you now what I've just read out in full, so you can understand the concept behind it and you can see the damage that's been done. Okay, and remember, the damage is not exceptionally excluded to this type of damage. It could be simply lighting fittings, it could be a light switch, it could be dependent rolls, ceiling rolls hanging down, that's been damaged, but you did not notice it. Okay, right? You can have plaster work that is damaged before you have begun the work. Therefore, if you have not made this clear, then you can be held responsible. Okay. Let's get a full view, okay, in frame first, okay? So we can make sure that we are in frame first. So now we're moving closer so that we can see that, see it in more detail. Okay, now load bearing walls. Now you must not under any circumstances alter the thickness or the depth of these walls. Okay, now here we have the vertical chases are not to be deeper than 1/3 of the wall's depth. So if it's 3 feet, if it's a meter, let's just for argument's sake, 3 feet, then you can only go down to 1 feet. Okay, that'll be just 1/3 of your depth. Okay. Now your depth is here and your thickness is here. So retaining this thickness here, you cannot reduce the thickness of your wall, okay? Otherwise you're going to cause damage in means that you haven't even considered as yet. Okay, now this is a load bearing wall, okay, 300 millimeters. And 300 millimeters is what? 30 centimeters, which is 1 foot. Okay, so you can see here you should be at least 1 foot apart. Now diagonal chases are not to be made. Okay, so this kind of chasing here is not permitted. Okay, your chasing should come straight down. Okay, no good going there and then swinging back to here. You're going to be weakening the structure, and it is the weakening of the structure that you need to be aware of and ensure that that does not happen. Now if horizontal chases are made, they are not to be deeper than 1/6 of the depth of the wall. Okay, again here you can see that they're trying to make sure that you don't cause any excessive damage. Now these rules here are found in your IEE regs and in your on-site guide. Use them. They're there to protect you and ensure that when you leave your job and done your work, that work will stand for 100 years or more. Okay, let's go on a little bit further. Okay. And here we have depth of vertical chases not to exceed 1/3 of wall thickness. Depth of horizontal chases not to exceed 1/6 of wall thickness either. Okay. And here we have PVC cables buried in walls should be covered in either steel or PVC conduit. This allows for repairs and rewires. Okay. Now, when you put on metal capping, as we call it in the trade, if you're going to use metal capping, fine. But one of the reasons why we recommend metal capping was because in households, for whatever reason, you always get somebody trying to knock a nail through the plasterboard, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to hit a nail right through the cable, and it will go through plastic much easier than it would go through the capping, steel capping. Okay. But I will agree that PVC conduit will allow an easier rewiring job than steel capping will, because you can scratch your cables on the steel capping. Okay. Okay, let's just get this up. Now, this is not a 5-minute job. This is not a 10-minute job. It's not a 24-hour job. This is a job for life. Okay. Okay. Now, wooden floors. Now, again, you must check with your base. Sorry, it's okay. I just lost my place here for a moment. Just bear with me for a second. Something else just came across my mind as well. Cable installed on the floors or above ceilings should be installed in accordance with the requirements, regulations 522, etc. This requires cables to comply with one or more of the following. Now, you need to check that in regards to the IEE regulations, that you are corresponding with the current regulations. Now, we are currently in the 18th edition of the IEE regs, or IET regulations. Okay, so you must now check in regards to wooden floors, that this now corresponds to the specification as laid down in the IE regs. Now, you need to be sure that there has not been any amendments or any changes that has taken place or has now been brought into play that you have not recognized or complied with. It is essential that you comply with the IE regs to the letter. There are no exceptions. Safety, safety, safety. And here as well, to be armored, you will get the specifications and they will tell you where the specifications are, and you then need to make sure that you're corresponding with any new specifications that is in place that will replace these. Okay, that is down to you. Now, enclosed in earth conduit or trunking, again, check your IE regs. Look in your on-site guide, user information, and make sure it is the current version. Doesn't matter whether it's now or in the future, that you're using the current version of the on-site guide and the IEE regs. Okay, wooden floors. Now, cables have to be run through the center of the joist at a depth of at least 50 millimeters, 2 inches. Anything other than this should be protected by steelwork. If a number of holes are to be drilled, they should be at least 300 millimeters apart. That's 300 millimeters or 30 centimeters or 12 inches if you prefer. Okay, you must keep different services separate. Any thermal insulation present or which might be installed at a later date should be considered, as this derates the cable. Now, remember, nowadays you will now have to allow for insulation, and you need to then apply the insulating factor that comes when in regards to cables being installed. this is showing you separate cables, water pipes that you have a good distance apart from them. The idea is that if where this is a pipe work and this could be your central heating, it's to ensure that there's sufficient space between this pipe work and these cables to prevent this pipe work, when it gets hot, affecting the insulation of these conductors. Okay, and that is very, very important. You do not want your cabling work to get, or insulation to get soft. The moment it gets soft, it fails to be an insulator. Okay, concrete floors. Now, if cables are to be run in concrete floors, then they should be buried in heavy gauge steel or PVC conduit. If the conduit is buried in reinforced concrete, then the conduit should be fixed to the reinforcing steel work. If the conduit is buried in the screed, then it should be fixed using crampets or pipe hooks. Okay? I'll show you how this is done, and this is how this is done, okay, overall. Any boxes should be fixed either to the shuttering or some other equally robust support. This will allow for the conduit to be kept in place whilst the laying of the concrete takes place. The boxes should also be protected from any concrete getting into them. Okay? So you can stuff your boxes with foam or newspaper support. Okay? Because you cannot get cables into a junction box or conduit box that's been filled with concrete. It will not work. Just to make sure that it's on full screen. Okay. Cavity wall cables. Here we're saying the cable might catch on the tie bars or sharp brickwork. Okay, so we need to make sure that your tie bars, okay, and you need to make sure that your cables are running in a manner where it's not going to be stressed or be pulling against these tie bars. These tie bars here hold these two walls together and keep them from moving on the wind or vibration, etc. Now here, as I said, you can see that these are your tie bars, and the cable here can get scratched or pulled or damaged if you was to run it into these wall cavities. Now, these cavities are not accessible normally in the everyday sense, but you will not run cable between these walls. That is not their purpose. Okay. And here, as we said in here now, that cables should never be installed in cavity walls. There are four main reasons for this. Okay. PVC cables can bleed into walls faces with polystyrene. Now, when it says bleed into, it means that there's a chemical reaction that takes place between this cable and this polystyrene, and it has an effect on the cable insulation. It can cause it to break down and therefore become short-circuited. Therefore, it will make your system inoperable at a point in time, whether or not it was running computers or heating system or whatever, or lights. Okay? Whether it's bricks or blocks, the criteria will still be the same. Okay? And here's your third reason. Okay? If the cables touch the outer wall as well as the inner wall, this could lead to damp patches occurring. So what it does, the internal wall with a plaster finish, that's your plasterboard up against this wall. But you have your external wall which will absorb the dampness from outside, right? Your cable touched against this wall here will cause a form of condensation to occur, and that will run down into this wall. It will run off the cable, yes, but it will be absorbed by this wall here first, and then that has the effect of coming through to your plasterboard, which then causes your plasterboard to get damp, and you will never paint over that. Okay, cable touching both the outer walls and the inner wall. So first rule, never run cables in the cavities of walls for a start. Okay. So let me just make sure I can get this in frame. So you can see this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, just use frame, I think. Okay. Four. Insulation added to the walls would derate the cables by half. Okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, the full frame. Okay, thank you. Good. Now, dry line walls. Okay. Now, what this means is that we got plastic oval conduit. Okay. Oval conduit. Laps. Okay, laps. These are, well, I just call them slabs. These are fixed against the concrete wall, screwed in, and these act as the support to hold your plasterboard in place. Okay, this is your brickwork. Okay, so face walls or walls with special finishes should have the cables disguised or placed in a non-visible position. Okay, that's just to make sure you can see that. Okay, go on up and make sure we can bring the other part in as well. With a dry line wall, there is no real need for any additional protection, and simple capping or oval tube will suffice to provide protection whilst the wall board is being put in place. and to allow for later rewire. Okay, but remember that all this is open to change, and you are still compliant with the IEE regulations, and it is up to you to ensure that you are compliant with the current IEE regs at that point in time, whether past, present, or future. Safety, safety, safety. Roof spaces, suspended ceilings, okay? There are two types of roof spaces, suspended ceiling and those created by timber and plaster, accessible roof space. Okay. Now, let me just make sure we get this in full view first, okay? The cables are not supported continuously due the method of installation. They must not suffer damage by their own weight, okay? And again, bear in mind that regulation 522.8.4 may have changed. You need to comply with the current regulations in the IE regs. At this moment in time, it is the 18th edition of the IE regs, okay? I believe this still to be the same, okay? But it's up to you to ensure that when you look at this, you comply with the current regulations, and that would be your guidance, what you would be looking for. Roof spaces, suspended ceilings in your on-site guide or the IEE regs. Now here, plug-in type of ceiling rolls, okay, here. So all it's showing you is how the ceiling roll has been connected, okay. No strain to be placed on the terminations, okay. So you will support your lighting fitting. Doesn't matter what kind of fitting it is, whether it's a fluorescent fitting or otherwise, that there must take a strain. There must not be any strain on your cables here whatsoever, okay. And again, here you have a different type of system here. Now remember that when you put this in place, it must be secured, because you do not want this unit or this unit falling or dropping down because it came unlatched, okay. So it must be secured. Normally these are bolted up and clamped with a clamp, okay, and secured. Your cables can be run as you like onto something soft or any mechanism that does not or cause damage to the cable. And here you can see here that this cable here has no strain on it, okay. Now care should be taken as the grid can have sharp edges, okay. So you need to be aware that when you're pulling your cable that you're not causing a problem. And again, here adequate means to fix the luminaires shall be provided. Again, check the IE regs at that current point in time, okay. It is currently the 18th edition of the IE regs, okay. And I haven't checked all of these to see if they're still compliant with the 18 regs, but I believe that those that I have seen have still referred to the relevant numbers, so I'm taking that as read. But it is up to you to make sure that you have complied with the IE regulations as it stands. I cannot emphasize that enough. Cables not to be laid on top of the tiles. If a fire occurs causing the ceiling to collapse, then the cables and fittings would also collapse, okay. So these are your tiles here, okay. The cables are not to be run along there, okay. They need to be well out of the way and against the concrete surface where possible, or against the concrete ceiling, ensuring that there's a good space between the cables and the false ceiling, okay. Okay, let's just go into this. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, good, let's just raise up this thing. And again, here we are, okay? And not the type of suspended ceiling. Again, you can have your suspended ceiling here. You have the cables being run on brackets from your main ceiling, okay? Cables do not need to be installed in the conduit, but they do need to be supported with catenary wire or top tape, okay? Some of the sort, okay? Just going closer so you can see, okay? Just to make sure that I get it in frame, okay? Okay. Okay, just checking, sorry. Okay. Accessible roof space. Now in inaccessible roof spaces, cables should be routed away from hatches, access points, walkways, crawlways, etc. Okay? Cables can be left loose, unclipped to allow for rewiring if there is no access to the roof space. And again, make sure you're compliant with the IE regs at that point in time. At this moment, it is the 18th edition of the IE regs. Okay. Now, timber frames. Great care must be taken with timber frame buildings. It is very important to liaise with the builder to make sure that the cable runs, boxes or equipment do not break vapor barriers or external walls. Okay, boxes should be entered from the rear through a drilled hole noggin. Okay, and your noggin is what your box is going to be fitted to. Okay, so that is your noggin. Okay, and you fix your box to your noggin, and a hole is drilled at the back of the noggin to allow access to whatever, whether it is a switch or socket, whichever. Walls not to be notched. The maximum size hole that can be drilled is 25 millimeters, 1 inch. Care must be taken not to damage the insulation. Remember, wood burns more easily than brick or concrete. Okay, so it is in your best interest to make sure that you take all precautions. And again, you must comply with the IEE regs as it stands for that current period in time. I'm just showing you now your noggin and your wood frame and how the cable should be installed. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Right. Under no circumstances are you to drill steel work. Doesn't matter where you are, you never drill steel work, okay? This structure never to be drilled. Doesn't matter whether you're putting in a 1 millimeter hole or a 5/32 hole, you cannot drill any steel work, okay? So you need to use clamps and grips, etc. that is made to support cable work, etc. and your pipe work, okay? There are large amount of specialist fittings that can be clamped onto the steelwork, and these you will need to be familiar with for that period of time and make sure that you're compliant with the regulations to ensure that you have used appropriate securing clamps and that these clamps are not going to simply come off during vibrations. Okay. Fixings. It is essential that electrical equipment is erected in such a fashion that it is adequately supported. Regulation 522.8.4 requires cables and conductors do not suffer damage by their own weight. This requires cables to be fixed appropriately. Now again, make sure that you are compliant with the regulations at that point in time in regards to the IE regs. 522.8.4 I believe still applies at this point in time, but it may have changed in due course, even more so now that we've left the EU. Okay. Okay. Fixing for hollow walls, etc. Okay. Let's just pan back, okay. And let me just move into that. Okay. So fixing for hollow walls, okay. Should be able to see that there full. Okay, now there are several types of fixing for ceilings, etc. where screws are not appropriate. Okay, and here you have the butterfly clip and a number of other fixing items you'll see shortly. Okay. You got this intercept clips, okay. Just get them back and make sure we get the full view of this, okay. 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 And I have used all of these types, and believe me when I tell you that when you put this into a wall, you cannot get it out, okay. This here as well, you cannot remove them or any of this, and they're secure, okay. This one you can use again, but this one here, when you if you take the screw out, you lose the complete, it just drops out anyway, okay. Okay. Now, planning work activities. Now, there are a variety of ways in which work activity can be planned. The first and probably simplest to understand is the Gantt chart, usually called the bar chart if you like. Now, preparing the site. Now, what they're saying here is that giving you an idea of taking it from 100%, how long it will take to prepare the site. Okay, so much time will be spent on preparing the site, and that is a fraction of 100%. So here again, time takes to lay your foundation, to do your drainage, the time the bricklayers will take, joiners, roofers, how long the electrician will take. Now here is a short space for the electrician because these guys will bring in the temporary supply, and this is where they will then begin to do the full work. Okay, plumbers, plasterers, painters, and the actual commissioning. Okay. There are times when the electrical trade is not required on a site, and here you can see that here there's a gap here, they're not required, and here again are not required. So between April and beginning of June, the electricians are required, roughly. Okay. This now gives you the various types of fixing bolts, bigger fixing bolts, that for concrete fixing and so forth. Okay, bolt projection roll bolt. You have roll bolt having a separate bolt. Okay, so etc. These will go into your wall system, and they will simply be tightened up onto your structure. So here, if you were securing a motor, for instance, or a fan or something, that would unscrew. That body here would be pushed into the hole, and then you would then unscrew this, and then you shove it through your fan and screw that straight in. Okay, overall. Okay. Now here again we have a bar chart showing activities. Okay, bar charts show different activities but do not show the interdependence of the activities. A bar chart is a crude measure of the progress of the work. They don't give details of the individual activities for a trade. No, the bar chart is not designed to give you individual activity of a trade. So if me as an individual electrician come on the job, it's not going to give you how long this independent electrician takes to wire up a row of floors and fittings. It will give you the view, the perspective as to how long the contractor has taken to do the job overall. Okay. And here you have what you have here is week number. Okay, so here for week 1 you have got prepare site. Week 2 you have install temporary supply. So here you have the electricians in on temporary supply. Okay, here excuse me, week 3, right, and this is all in March, you have accept deliveries. Now here you now begin to accepting deliveries for the plasterboard, concrete, fixings and so forth. Okay, install conduit and other fixings, first fixings. Okay, now it takes longer than a week, mate, to install some of these jobs, because this is a building site. So remember, now again here, install. So that hasn't started yet. That won't happen just yet. So you can see now at the first week of May, they're now going to start MI cable installation. Okay, so you can taking this as a whole, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 8, 9 weeks before they start installing MI cables. Okay, then you've got complete installation of wall wiring cable. You got 4, 8, 12 weeks on completion for fall installation. Now don't forget, you then have to commission it and secture and so forth. Okay, so let's just get into this, make sure that we can get this up here. Okay, okay. Okay, pan back. Okay. Now here you have, we need now make sure we have coordination with other trades. Okay, sorry about that. So let me just cap this. Okay, and you should be able to see this in full for yourselves. Okay, and move on. Okay, that you can read for yourself. Don't need me to read that out to you. Okay. Multi-choice questions. Okay. Make sure you can read them and see them, and you need to be answering these for yourselves. It enables you to understand and to look back at what you need to have done or what you did not understand. Okay. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. and see you soon. Bye bye.